Hi everyone, I'm Daniel. I'm joined here by Justin from Playing Board Games, and we are going to start a little series talking about some of the retrospective of the Bless and Curse cards that first came out in the Innsmouth Conspiracy, but now have gotten a little bit of a boost, a bit of an injection, of, if you will, of new cards into those archetypes from the Feast of Hemlock Vale. However, that's not the only thing that has changed since then, and we'll talk about some changes to the Taboo, as well as parallel investigators that have expanded a lot of the things you can do with Bless and Curse cards. So today, we'll start with the Bless cards. The Bless tokens themselves, if you don't know, are these special tokens that got added in from the Innsmouth Conspiracy as well as the Feast of Hemlock Vale, which say when you draw them, it's a +2 modifier, and then you reveal another token. At the end of the test, you then put that token not back into the bag, but back to the token pool. So it's a bit of a unexpected courage that's temporary, but also kind of random. Now, at the initial onset of these cards and the tokens, I think people were a little bit lukewarm on the Blessed tokens, but we'll talk about that more in detail. But now I've seen some crazy things that you can do. In fact, this whole series was inspired by me watching a very recent video that Justin that you did on your channel with Parallel Father Mateo and William York that just demolished Threads of Fate. And
Yes,
my
yeah,
idea was like, okay, are the Blessed builds cracked now? Because it kind of seems like it to me. So that's our big
yes,
question, and I want to get your thoughts on that too. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So I do think blessed tokens are cracked now. I think that is so I think that like Feast of Hemlock Vale. I think so. I think there's actually a lot of things, and that's why this retrospective is so cool. I think there was a lot of things that have made bless in the state that they are now. I think there's one card in particular that is a problem,
hmm
which we'll get into in this video as well. But I think that there's actually a lot of small things that have added up to blessed tokens being where they are now, which I think is really cool because there's been a good evolution, and it's going to be exciting to talk about that evolution.
yeah. So let's start with that. At the beginning, it was just the Innsmouth conspiracy itself. In fact, wouldn't even be just the whole box that's been re-released now, but rather it was a
Mhm.
small drip of cards throughout the cycle. So I'll lean on you a little more heavily. What
Mhm.
were the kinds of things you could do with bless tokens back then?
So there really was like there was the rite of sanctification. That was like probably the most common use that you had for bless tokens, but it was pretty much only in Sister Mary.
hmm
The issue with bless was that it was hard to consistently get generation. Like generation was doable, right? But the only way to consistently get it was Sister Mary. So outside of that, it was hard to touch it into other people. There were a lot of really good survivor cards that were able to pay off with it, but all you had to put in bless tokens were tempt fate
hmm
and the keep faith, which are like the real consistent ways to do it. But even then, only having 4 copies of cards in your deck made it a little bit harder. You still had the payoff in the form of Blessing of Isis and Nethys. So I think what kind of happened was that Bless at the start was pretty much like just Guardian. You played it in Sister Mary, you had the Holy Spirit, and you did all that stuff with it. I think over time it's evolved to be now Survivor's identity really
hmm
well. It's kind of like where the big payoffs are, because really the only payoffs were um, drawing tokens. Like so, you had like the favor of the sun to just like ensure you were drawing them. And there's a lot of people who would play blessed decks, and they would say blessed decks suck because you need the payoffs, and the only payoff that you really had was Holy Spear.
hmm
But that's like not a blessed deck. That's like a Holy Spear deck. It's like different, right? But then you also had the Favor of the Sun with Ancient Covenant. So those were like the only 2 payoffs back in the day.
Yeah, I feel like that
So
was the best thing that you could do because the other ones were, I don't know, like the level 0 Blessed Blade, which you
mhm.
wanted to draw the Blessed
uh,
tokens, but so
yeah,
inconsistent, it just pretty bad for a weapon.
yeah, and like on yeah, like kind of like even close to unplayable.
hmm
Like the only time that I would play it was in a Will Yorick deck because he's built different, right?
Right.
Because like, and I played that before Hemlock. So like these are pieces that were like existed before Hemlock too. Hemlock, of course, as we'll get there, but that changed the game for Blesses completely. Um, but yeah, like it was basically just like Holy Spear and then Ancient Covenant, and you were kind of just like using your Favor of the Sun like 3 times and being like, I'm doing it, you know? Because there's also like, if you look at also like especially compared to Curse, Curse got Deep Knowledge, Faustian Bargain, and Promise of Power. 3 very powerful cards. I'd say 2 of them are easily staples, right? Um, but Bless, like you got Ward of Radiance, which people did math for to talk about how good it is. And in my opinion, if you have to do math for a card to talk about how good it is, odds are it's not that good. Ignore the fact that I did that for Olive McBride. She's
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 different, and we'll
she's
talk about
good.
her too.
Yes. But then you also had like Hand of Fate, the dodge that costed 3,
Mm-hmm.
right? You had some nice payoff cards in the form of the Radiant Smite and like the whatever the one that moves to them is called.
Uh,
Um,
yes, the one with Lita Chandler on it, right?
yes, yeah, where she's swinging in
I
through the
love that
window.
art. Mm-hmm.
Um, those like Radiant Smite is very playable, but at the same time, in the ability to get blessed tokens in, it was a little bit harder. This is all speaking from the context of being fair, because there were a lot of gross things you could do if you wanted to do crazy combos, right? Unfortunately, I'm not a crazy combo gamer, so I'm not really able to speak of them, but there's a reason why a Watchful Piece and Hallow were both tabooed to remove themselves from the game,
Mm-hmm.
because if you did want to go hard on it, you could, but I think those combos generally work better in 3 or 4 players. So most people who play 1 or 2, they wouldn't be able to experience those combos.
Yeah, there was always this tension in the initial card pool between, do I want to seal all the tokens or do I want to draw them?
Yes.
And they kind of pull in different directions. But unfortunately, I don't think there were enough cards for either of those archetypes to really make them be a good choice. So I feel like Sister Mary, with the initial card pool, was more on the side of I want to seal all the tokens. So there was a
Yes.
lot of sealing cards like Rite of Sanctification that you mentioned, which I think is it's quite good, but
Yes.
is it good enough, right? The blessed tokens on their own don't seem to do enough, so they're used instead as like a battery. And
Yes.
yeah, even for Holy Spear, right? It's the same idea. I want the tokens in the bag, not because the plus twos are worth anything, but to fuel my Holy Spear deck.
Yeah.
And I think that has changed. So that seemed to be the payoff to me, is mostly on the side of sealing tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally you get a good home for Blessing of Isis, which really is the token fishing archetype.
Yeah.
Um, but for Sister Mary, her elder sign is just add another blessed
Another
token
one.
in.
Yeah.
You're like, okay,
And,
great.
and and even then people would talk about playing Blessing of Isis, like, but the reality is it's kind of more of a pipe dream. Like if you actually like watch people play Blessing of Isis, they trigger it a lot less than you think they do,
Mhm.
right? Because it actually is hard to trigger an effect like that unless you have a consistent way to drop tokens in the bag, or alternatively a consistent way to pull tokens from the bag. And at a release, those just didn't exist outside of Sister Mary. And even then, as you said, there was the divide between drawing and sealing. She couldn't consistently draw, so instead she was sealing.
Okay, so I did play a Father Mateo Blessing of Isis deck before all of the current stuff, but now I've revisited that with all of the new cards, and I've noted a little bit of a shift. So what has changed? So there's a couple things, right? One is you mentioned the taboo that additionally got rid of these powerful effects, so like a Watchful Piece or Hollow, to be just once per game, which I think is fair. But I think in a later taboo, we started to change what other cards cared about in terms of drawing them. So, Voice of Ra,
Mm-hmm.
Jewel Loyalist, there's a whole suite of these mystic cards that care about symbols instead of you drawing a particular symbol like a skull, cultist, elder thing, or tablet. Now it's any symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, these cards that were not really part of the bless or curse archetypes become a lot more playable in these decks. So ritual candles, one I didn't mention in particular, turns these bless tokens into plus threes. So my first question to you on this is plus three better than plus two for just the idea of drawing the tokens for the benefit of having a higher skill value?
No, so I don't think so. I think +3 and +2 is the same number, right? Like to me, honestly, actually in Arkham, +0 is equal to +2,
Mhm.
right? Like it's kind of like the same thing. Most of the time, you are planning to pass the test, right? Like you're planning to test or just be even. So 0 and +1 are the same token. Um, So no, I don't think there's a change in that regard. I think we're going to talk about that more for curse tokens for
Hmm.
ritual candles.
Hmm.
But for bless, I'm a pretty big sayer that unless you're doing something with your bless tokens, they actually do nothing.
So I think that Voice of Ra, on the other hand, gets a lot better just because you're adding a whole lot of symbol tokens to the bag and you don't have to
Yes.
draw extras, right? So the problem with the +3 versus the +2 is you're still drawing another token. So either you were probably going to pass the test anyway, or you draw into an auto fail or something, and it didn't matter.
And,
But
and the
but Voice
reality
of
is too. Also, is the more that you like the more that you make your bless tokens better, the more you're drawing, the more you're actually wasting your bless tokens,
Mhm.
right? So like a +3 is less exciting when you're +6, unless you're a rogue, but rogues don't play bless, right?
No, not really.
So like there's that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. So Voice of Ra, I think, on the other hand, starts
Hmm.
to get so much better, and you throw it into blessed decks that you weren't really expecting, and it's true for Curse too. We'll come back to that as well.
Hmm.
I think that card,
Um,
just in general, if there's a lot of symbol tokens now, if anyone's playing Bless Curse on your team, it's crazy the amount of value you can get from Voice of
it
Ra.
In my mind, so first off, the taboo of changing a lot of these mystic cards to just be symbol, I think, is quietly, in hindsight, the biggest shift this game has had in terms of cards power level. It's absolutely crazy the thing that's changed because of that. And number two, I agree. Voice of Ra, I think, is actually just now replaced Uncage the Soul. It's just
Hmm.
like Uncage the Soul, you don't even see played that much anymore because Uncage the Soul is economy that requires an economy, right? Like, it requires a card like to pay it off. With Voice of Ra, you can just get your emergency cash in Mystic, so you can run two of them if you need it.
It's crazy the ceiling on it. If you draw even just the three symbols, right? That's
Mhm.
what, +6 resources, +1 from the Voice
Yeah,
of Ra
so
itself.
7 in total. Yeah.
And that's insane. I mean, that doesn't usually happen without the taboo, but with it and things like Bless or Curse, it's just crazy value. And why wouldn't you play that? Like, I feel like it solves the entire Mystic economy problem.
Yeah.
All right. The other thing that happened before Hemlock came out was we got Nkosi Mabati, who
Mhm.
is, I think, quietly actually part of the Bless or Curse archetype, even though he's not that on the tin, because he allows you to, instead of drawing one of those other symbol tokens, you get to draw a Curse or Bless or any symbol, really, that's not an Elder sign of your choice. So if you're trying to do a bit more token fishing, which can happen in any of these archetypes, he's going to let you do that even harder. Kind of expensive for the effect, but before Hemlock Vale came out, I tried that out in Father Mateo. I think I've tried it out in Sister Mary as well, and it felt like a good addition.
Yeah. Nkosi Mabati's biggest crime is that Jim Culver exists. So when Nkosi came out, Jim Culver, I mean, I'm guilty of it, right? I'm guilty of this. Jim Culver ate the conversation around him, right? But it's true. He exists, I think, at this point now for Blessed and Curse, especially Paradoxical,
Hmm.
like especially that one. Being able to draw the token you want is a very powerful thing. And like if you have more Blessed draw, you can have him be Cursed. If you have more Cursed, you can have him be Blessed. But at the same time, him just being like, I've seen builds of people do with him to just grab bless tokens in like a guardian deck and like
Hmm.
Sister Mary to be able to pull them, and he's very versatile with that.
So then Hemlock Vale came out, and we knew that there was going to be a revisit to these archetypes, and it definitely has been. So again, there's the uh, generation side, and then
Mhm.
there's the payoffs. What we didn't see in the original card pool from Innsmouth was much to do with clues in your
Mm.
blessed decks because it was mostly focused on guardians, and at the time, that was kind of what you were doing with Guardians. I think things have changed a bit, but that said, the only new card that we've gotten for payoff as well as generation that has anything to do with clues is Guided by Faith, which is a decent card. I don't know if you've played it much.
I've played it in Parallel Father Mateo because again, when we get to him, preview of what to come, when you can guarantee a payoff,
Hmm.
it's like the perfect use of the card. The cards get really good. I do actually also think that Guided by Faith is a little bit maligned by the community. Um, because like there's a lot of people who just say that it's bad. And I don't think it's great, but I do think that it has like a home in Blessed Generation, at least at level 0.
Hmm.
Um, if you can like run it over other things, if you are a clover, right? I mean, there's a lot of stipulations where like, it's like you have to use your brain, yada yada yada. But still, I think the card is actually pretty okay to play.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I forgot that's the other part of the trifecta is it's not just the generation, it's the payoff, and the third thing is how easily you can actually get the tokens that you want if your
Mhm.
payoff has to do with drawing the tokens themselves. And yeah, we'll get to some of those parallel investigators in a second. So I think it's a
Mhm.
decent ad because it's actually doing something for payoff and it's generating. But the big one is ancestral token for your
Yes.
fighters to consistently add in tokens every round, almost every round, and
Almost every
a
round, and
good
like higher
chunk.
player counts. Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
look at the
It's
comparison with Holy Rosary 2, which was the accessory slot blessed generator in the original set,
mhm.
which only allowed you to add them in on a willpower test.
Yeah.
Treachery. Willpower treachery.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And only two.
and
Only two.
only two. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where you can see the I mean, so admittedly there was a designer change between this moment. So like it's a new lead designer who has taken over from Innsmouth like to what Hemlock is now. But you can see that there was when the players got the cards, they were able to react and adapt to see how these cards were playing, and you could tell that they were like, okay, bless generation is our issue. We need to just ensure that bless has more generation so people can actually play with them beyond just like Sister Mary. Because like I do think that even though the builds were viable, like bless outside of Sister Mary was like a little bit like still a little bit wonky until we started to get to like at the very least ancestral token,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because now exactly as you said, like you're putting in easily 3 a turn on average, right? Like if there's an enemy that's showing up 2 or 3, because most enemies have 2 or 3 health. um but you also see this in like there's that one absolute is that the skill absolution?
Absolution is, I think, the healing horror one. I think it's purified.
Purified, yeah, the priest going
Yep.
"Rah!"
Yep.
Yeah. That one is also bonkers. Been playing with that one recently. Its blessed generation is insanely good. So you saw that there was just a shift in what they wanted the level of blessed generation to be, and what they told us was that they want you adding 5 a turn on the maximum. Like
Yes.
that is where
Yeah.
they were like that is our peak. Yeah.
And that's so you can only have max 10, but I have noticed
Yeah.
with these cards that you have 8 to 10
Yes,
every
all the
round.
time.
Yep.
Yep, all the time.
Which
It's
is
and
wild.
it's
Is
not
that
even hard.
intended, do you think?
I think that is intended. I think that is intended because I think the reality is that you actually don't feel the tokens in the bag unless you have 5 or more.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you'll get like the random like this same true for curses. You'll get like the random bless or curse on a test and it might change it, it might not change the result, right? But as soon as you get 5 bless tokens or 5 curse tokens in the bag, you'll suddenly start seeing them impact it more consistently. So I think the design philosophy is we want these to just always be impacting the bag, so we need to keep it around 5 minimum.
Mm-hmm. So now we have Blessed Blade level 4, which reflects the fact that it's moved from a payoff for um, drawing blessed tokens, although the original had some addition as well, to
Mhm.
just being generation and keeping the blessed tokens in the bag,
Yeah.
which is wildly different, right? You don't care about drawing
Yes.
them to do extra damage. Would be cool if you had that still on the card, but it's
Mhm.
always dealing 2, but now they just stay in there forever. It's like Sacred Covenant stuck to a card that is a weapon.
Yeah, I do think that Blessed Blade, unfortunately, I think was a miss for me personally in terms of design because it's not interesting, right? Like it's not like it's just like too efficient for like what it is. And I mean, I think also it's kind of like not needed
Hmm.
either, because like you can just like have your ancestral token do the work for you. However, what it does do allows you to play blessed without relying on just ancestral tokens, so you can maybe do something else with your slot.
True.
Um, but like I think that also to go with the thesis of the video where our blessed tokens cracked now, I do think that they kind of made them a bit too the design's a bit too powerful on some of these things that are repeatable.
Hmm.
I think the one shot effects stay actually relatively weak in comparison to what they were in like Miracle Wish. I'm basically talking about here.
Hmm.
Um, but like the permanent effects for the ever blessed generation is kind of wild.
Yeah, because they're on assets when before they really were just let's play Tempt Fate, Keep Faith, etc., or have
Mhm.
Sister Mary. So It's just so easy to get if you get them down early. So I've been playing with a friend the last few weeks a regular Father Mateo deck, doing all kinds of blessed stuff with all the new cards, paired with a Nathaniel Cho who's got
Mm,
Ancestral Token and Radiant Smite, and it's crazy. That change has made um, anyone, I'm not gonna say anyone, but so many other investigators able to play with this archetype.
yep.
I think Will York, that you played with on the channel, was again, you could do some things. You could recur Rite of Sanctification, that's fine. But being able to use your investigator ability, that rather, sorry, your investigator role, fighting and killing monsters, to then add blessed tokens is just huge. The swing of number of tokens in the bag just made it so everything else was so much easier to
Yep.
make happen. So assembling the combo pieces essentially is, I don't want to say trivial, but way easier than it was before.
Yes. I think also to see the impact of blessed tokens, as I said earlier, my belief on blessed tokens is that they don't do anything unless you're using the payoff for them.
Hmm.
I still stand by it, but at the same time, I also believe that if you just are a fighter and you want to have something for your accessory slot, ancestral token will impact the game in a positive way, even if you're not doing a payoff,
Hmm.
which might actually be a problem when it comes like if you want to get into the nitty gritty of power level and balance. But at the same time, I think that that is cool for Guardians to actually have something that is consistently so powerful.
So the other change, maybe not change, but to looking back at Mystic cards again, we've got a whole set of cards that return to your hand. The events, read the signs, spectral razor on a symbol draw. So kind of following the earlier taboo change to Mystics caring about symbols in general. Oh boy, now if you add a lot of symbols to the bag, you just get these back every turn.
Yes.
Whoa.
And also like not only that, they kind of have the Jewel of Aureolus is how you pay for them,
Hmm.
right? So like they've also have a way that also in the same sort of design buff pays for the cards that you want to keep looping repeatedly.
There's other options too. Even just Rite
Yep.
of Sanctification will do it, but Prophetic,
Yep.
I think you played with the Mateo deck.
Yep.
Those are the two resources, right, that you get every turn. Pretty incredible. Yeah, so I feel like all of these pieces together suddenly have turned into this massive, I don't know, machine that just draws and uh, uses the blessed tokens for things that it could have been a zero, right? It doesn't have to be a
Mhm.
+2 for these kinds of builds. Although I agree, just like incidental blessed token addition to draw to help your team out seems cool. It's just not really where the card pool has gone
Mhm.
anymore. So last change is back to the Mystic pool. All of McBride 2 makes it so you can really fish out the blessed tokens much more easily. I think Blessing of Isis becomes a card that is much more consistent now.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can combo that with Favor of the Sun or something as well from the original set. But uh, again, I'm running this Father Mateo deck that you've talked about how good All of McBride 2 is, but I drew, this is a game I played yesterday, 7 Elder Signs naturally, and then another maybe 3 or 4 with Blessing of Isis. And my goodness, you get a lot of value out of that. It's just, it's
Yes.
nuts.
Yeah.
You're like, what do I do? I guess I'll take another action. And man, I felt unstoppable even with cards that don't seem like they should be in Father Mateo. So I'm running upgraded Spectral Razors as a 2 of, again, with this Nathaniel Cho, who's able to kill lots of things too, but having this in your back pocket that never goes away is very powerful.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
It's yeah. No, it's good. I mean, I do think that Olive is good for the game in general too, but like Bless and especially Paradoxical, she's gonna boost those archetypes like crazy.
let's talk about the 2 parallel investigators then. So first we got Parallel Zoe, who
Yeah.
has an ability to add blessed tokens in whenever she does damage, so once per phase, I believe,
Hmm.
and then can remove the blessed tokens to deal extra damage too.
Hmm.
Have you had any playthroughs with her?
Yeah, I've actually brought her through. She's one of the few parallel investigators I've brought through a campaign. And I've played her twice in standalone. I think she's very fair. I think she's really good. Um, and but I think because like she spends a lot of tokens. Like we've been talking about putting 5 in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like Like taking 3 out, unless you have an easy way to put them back in, is like a little bit hard to do. I kind of want to try it with Parallel Father Mateo though as a teammate because I I do think he's. We'll get to him, but I think Parallel Zoe, she's fun, and I like it. I like the flavor. I think her deck building is also very restrictive, which is
Hmm.
really nice because I think if she had normal Guardian deck building, it would be a little bit messy. Of
Right. So
course, you can do that with her ability, like with the Parallel swap, but
right.
um,
So she can't get the Holy Spear with the parallel back is kind of the thing that she's
yeah,
missing. Or what else do you think she
yeah.
might be missing from Guardian?
Oh, just like big Guardian weapons, like the
Mm,
big
yeah,
stuff, like to go into that one. She has to like kind of be a little bit scrappy with it, because she can. I think she might be able to play Holy Spear because
I think
she can
it's
play
zero
Blessed
four
Blade.
blessed, right?
Oh, it's Holy Spear 5. I thought it was 4. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5.
So yeah, that in that case, which is good because then it also differentiates her from Sister Mary,
Hmm.
which I really support restrictions like that. But it means that you because you're like Guardian 03, Blessed 04, you're kind of either like Blessed Blade or you have to work with the lower end on the stuff for weapons, which I think really evens out her power level.
Yeah, I think she can do stuff with some of the other cards instead, like B Cop or Nephthys to try to
Yes.
use her ability in different ways, which is good. It's not just give me the big weapon. Okay, Parallel Father Mateo, who just came out, has an ability that seals blessed tokens on any investigator card once per turn, I believe, or once per
Yeah.
round, and they have to be at your location, and it has to be during your turn. So there's some they tried to box you in a little tiny bit
Yeah.
about like player order in order to make this happen, but the payoff is you just resolve a blessed token and then release it back into the bag whenever you want. It's a favor of the sun just stapled to your card,
Yes.
everyone's card.
Yeah. Everyone's card. So I will say before I talk about how powerful and efficient he is, I don't think he's broken. I think that like I think he's very strong, but I think he's kind of just more like the best user of Bless right now.
Hmm.
They do a good job of actually of boxing him in, like you said. The only one per turn means that like unless you're doing just him, you kind of have to like pick and choose when you're going to do it.
That's right.
On the flip of that, maybe it's best if it's just him doing it, right? Like maybe like that's just how this is going to all come down that he's only going to use it on himself. Um, but he is to me like the pinnacle of what the bless payoff is because I said this in the video that you mentioned where I played Parallel Father Mateo for the first time. Um, your cards are so much better when you can guarantee the 100% every time. Like when it's like going at peak efficiency, the card is doing everything you want. There's even like I played that one card, Banish, the 2 cost event
Hmm.
in Mystic that you could evade an enemy if you revealed a symbol. You got to like also put them anywhere on the map.
That's right.
Turns out that card is very good when you can just do that. Like you're not playing. It's like you're basically removing the test from every card you play with Father Mateo's ability with Ancient Covenant, but we'll get to that too. I don't think we're there yet. But I
No.
think Father Mateo is very strong. I'm curious to see how he plays outside of Ancient Covenant and like Sacred Covenant.
Hmm.
Like I'm curious to see that kind of build. But just like a bless on command means that your survivors are going to go to the moon.
So before we get to Ancient Covenant itself, but I just want to address your point of passing a test or at least being pretty confident you pass a test every turn means that those powerful mystic spells and events especially start to get a lot better because the
Mhm.
opportunity cost for like putting a bunch into the test to make sure it goes off is a lot lower. And I think we could talk about this more, but this is sort of the thing, same thing with Read the Signs and Spectral Razor is, I mean, Spectral Razor is 3 damage to non-elites, and it gets you the engage effect. That's so big. It's a
Yes.
it's a amazing level 0 card. It looks like a level 5 shriveling without the downside, but you have to pay
Mhm.
for it all the time, and you have to have it, in your hand. It's just the upgraded version that almost always goes back to your hand because of Parallel
Mhm.
Father Mateo means that you don't have to worry about it not being available to you,
Mhm.
and that adds
Yeah.
a lot, I think, to the build itself. It's not just about what am I doing with the blessed token itself, but what kind of power can I get out of the those tests.
Yeah. And then also for Parallel Father Mateo, I remember that because I built a very similar deck with Kohaku
Hmm.
because Kohaku also is able to pull bless tokens on command with his ability. Um, I think at this point now he's kind of been usurped by Parallel Father Mateo because it's just easier. You actually don't need anything
You
to
don't
do
need your
it.
signature, right?
Yeah. But Kohaku, I think, is going to live in Paradoxical very well. But I think Parallel Father Mateo is now king of Blessed for sure.
All right, so that's what's changed. And I did neglect to say one thing about the taboo list with Ancient Covenant. So maybe we talk about this card now. So originally it was you could use this ability on anyone at your location. And the change the taboo list is only on your own tests. Can you trigger the ability to stop drawing tokens after you draw a Bless? Which in practice, with Favor of the Sun or Parallel Father Mateo or other cards, when you draw it, it's +2, end of test.
Mm-hmm. I think when Ancient Covenant was first released, it was very reasonable. It was very fair. It was strong. It was, I think, like the payoff to the survivor side of it.
Mm-hmm.
However, as they got more things, it became a lot easier to just trigger. So I think like the first taboo of removing the ability to use it on other people was good. It doesn't feel very survivor to do that in the flavor, but sometimes like function has to trump flavor. Um, with that said, I do think that Ancient Covenant is now it's on like the watch list. Like I think it's too strong. I would even say like broken. Um, like if we just put this into perspective of what you could do now with Parallel Father Mateo, you can begin a test. You can do a read the signs, right? Or even a special razor. I think that's a good example because I think like enemy management is like very important. And you commit you commit a purified to the test. You are going to draw your elders your blessed token. You're going to use your ancient covenant. You're going to succeed by a certain number. Put 5 more blessed tokens back in the bag, right? Because you're succeeding by 5. You're also going to trigger, I don't know, maybe your living ink, which cares about symbols. Maybe your jewel of Aureolus, which cares about symbols. So you're drawing cards, and there is no risk to do this because you pass the test. You know you're passing the test, and even though passing one test a turn is not going to win you the game on its own. Passing one test a turn while getting the full payoff from cards is going to win you the game easily.
Yep. Just watching that video that you had, it also meant that you had a bunch of bless tokens in there that didn't go away because of his ability. So you're using so originally with Ancient Covenant, you could use the bless token because you randomly drew it out of the bag or maybe off of Favor of the Sun and it went away.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't have to worry about that with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All these pieces together just you gain so much momentum, but then it doesn't really stop. You just keep having that every turn instead
Mm-hmm.
of using it up as a resource.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even then, like, even if you do use them, it's so like because this goes to the thing about talking earlier. It's so easy to get back in. In that video, I played a watchful piece 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, no, 3 times, not 5 times, 3 times. But like every time I did it, I had like 5 tokens back in the next turn. Like because I just played a purified again and just put in 5 tokens, right? And just like went for it. I'm actually also I'm bringing Parallel Father Mateo through a campaign right now with Silas
Mm.
and doing Blessing of Isis to just. So what I do now is Silas just he has a Favor of the Sun in play. I do a basic action and I have a brute force from my discard pile. Right, like I just know I'm going to succeed by enough to do it and deal 3 damage to an enemy. Right, and then I get that brute force back. Right, so like knowing that you can pass a test on command is very powerful.
So my favorite payoffs have always been something like Blessing of Isis because it feels
Mm-hmm.
very much. I think about the other investigators I'm playing or the one that I'm playing. How much more value can I get out of drawing the Elder Sign? And that thing with Silas is disgusting. It sounds great though. It sounds like a really fun time to build
Yeah.
as that being the payoff. It doesn't feel very samey, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of customizable depending on your team.
Yep. Like
Uh,
Nat Cho would be another fun one to do
yep.
that with. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I love being able to assemble all of the pieces and make it happen, whereas before it felt a bit more like a pipe dream.
hmm
But
And I do think that all of this is all fine.
mhm,
Like when I say like Ancient Covenant is broken, I mean like it should be on the watch. If they ever revisit Bless again, I think Ancient Covenant needs to have something change about it. Like I wouldn't complain if it happened right now either, but this is combo decks, and I think that
yep.
combo decks in theory should be really strong when you assemble your combo. Like that's kind of the fun of combo decks. The question is like, and I think even for the people playing the combo decks, they ask, is it too easy to set up my combo? Right. Like, and I think that's where you get into like the nitty gritty of balance for all this. And I think that still remains to be seen. We need to spend more time playing with these cards to, I think, really figure it out. But I wouldn't. I don't think it's reactive enough that we need to like burn it down, right? Because I think that, like you said, it's very fun to actually explore. I think Parallel Father Mateo is a very interesting investigator, and I think Bless as a whole is now like its pool is very wide and
Yeah,
like very deep now, as opposed to what it was before. And I think that's really exciting.
I agree. And I also mentioned that even though generation is a lot easier than it used to be, I've had a few scenarios of this campaign where the first, I don't know, 6 or 7 turns maybe, there's no blessed generation. It just doesn't show up. You don't find the ancient or the ancestral token. You don't find guided by faith, etc. And that is a lot harder to deal with. It's just that keeping them in once they're in has become so much easier, which is
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
pretty good. I think that's a good change. Instead of it being kind of automatic from the get go, you do have to
Mhm.
put in some work to start that engine going.
Mhm.
So, is there anything that you would change about the existing cards that are bless oriented, whether that's
I think
taboo or otherwise?
the only thing I think is just Ancient Covenant. I think that that card, uh, I don't even know. I don't think you could change. I don't know what you could do to change it without like. I think like putting it to more XP is not exciting. It's not
Hmm.
fun. I think changing the function of the card, like maybe where it blesses instead of being like stop, it gets like an additional +2. So like the bless tokens are +4 to like give you a better shot.
Hmm.
But I think that's the only thing I change. I think overall I'm quite happy with where blesses are. Um, yeah, I think that's it for what I would do. I just like I said, Ancient Covenant's just on watch list.
Yeah, I agree with that one. And I wish that I don't want that to dominate the conversation around bless either, because
Mhm.
it can get a little boring, I think, to just
Yeah.
say you have to add this into your deck. Like I remember that the original conversation about the covenants was always, which ones do you want to put in? And there needs to be a reason to run all of them.
Yeah.
And it's still probably too easy to say, yes, that one,
Yes. Yeah.
when you have access to multiple. So um, I didn't mention Jacob Morrison. I think
Mm.
he's a fun addition to this archetype for survivors. So it's a lucky, but you have to draw bless in order to ready him again.
Yeah.
But he's got a pretty fair cost, right? An ally slot and some XP that you could be doing something else with. I think he's a fun card.
Mhm.
And I kind of wish the Ancient Covenant, which is sort of a similar idea of it's easier to pass a test, had a similar restriction.
Yeah.
Maybe that it didn't ready until you drew another one or something. Maybe that's still too easy, but something like that where
Mhm.
it's not just automatic. It's a permanent card. It's already going to be super strong.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything you would add? What are we missing from the Bless archetype?
I would love a Blessed Blade Zero equivalent for investigating.
Yeah.
I think that would be very fun. Like, I think that it needs to exhaust. I think that's very important. Um, I think that that would be real. I think like a level 4 version, if it was like toned down, like if it was like on the line of Fire Axe to Mariner's Compass,
Hmm.
I'm okay if like combat options are always stronger than clue options. I think they should be. But I think that would be the thing that I'd want to see most. I also would like them to just like go into my collection and remove the weird Survivor blessed cards that just are unplayable. Harmony Restored.
This one behind
Uh,
me.
yeah, yeah, like the what is that one even called?
Predestined, I think.
Predestined.
It's
Yeah,
take heart
the
except for
Take
yeah.
Heart, but like like unplayably
Yeah.
bad. um, but like yeah, so I think that's kind of it. I would like to see like a Survivor thing that's kind of more in the line of Jacob Morrison. But at this point now, I think that adding more blessed like payoffs is probably bad. I
They're
think there
so
needs
good
to be just
already.
like yeah, there just needs to be like tools that you can use to make your blessed tokens sing more. Is
Mhm.
I guess what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The clue thing is notable. I wish they had something like what you're mentioning, like a dowsing rod equivalent.
Mhm.
But I think even guided by faith is fine. And in basic
Mhm.
investigates or read the signs, which is kind of kind of the upgrade read the signs especially is kind of that card too. You draw a blessed token, you get it back to your hand.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Because I guess also they don't want guardians to have like a asset that they can continually investigate with. It kind
Hmm.
of goes against the design philosophy for the class. You could see that in Survivor. Survivor could get it. But
Yeah.
you're right. Read the signs too when you get the combo up is essentially that.
Um, that's probably it for what I'd like to see. I agree with your takes on that too. I just feel pretty comfortable with saying, yes, I'm going to build a blessed team or even just a couple of people on your team to play the decks, and it works pretty well. So good on the design team for making it much more viable than it originally was and make us much more positive. I will say that I think it's a little bit sad that we don't have as much support for just the tokens themselves doing anything, the plus twos or whatever impacting the game. But I think that's just a reality of the game itself that you don't need the additions to your skills to pass tests anymore. And maybe that was the thought that Sister Mary has such low numbers. She kind of has plus twos sometimes, but
Yeah.
that's not where the design has gone. I bet you will see something that will use the ability to seal blessed tokens with
Mhm.
our new set that in Drowned City that deals with sealing tokens in general.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, but
Uh, Something that I actually I just remember now, adding to the bless archetype. This is something I talked about when Parallel Father Mateo was spoiled. But I love the flavor of like him putting bless tokens on people as the act of blessing someone.
mm,
And I would love if like that was a mechanic actually explored from the get-go, where like if there was a token sealed on your investigator, you could just always draw it. Because then like you could become cursed, right? So like then you have to draw that the next time you draw a thing, right? Like or like even like when like you can get like a cultist token sealed on your investigator, and like that does something for the effect of the game, right? But just like the idea of like, I think that could be something to explore. If a blessed token is sealed on an investigator, that investigator is blessed. What does that mean in terms of changing the game state, right? I think that could be cool.
apparently it was an idea that they explored because it was in the rules insert for Parallel Father Mateo, and then it doesn't actually
Nothing.
have a mechanical effect at this point.
Yeah. Who knows? It might happen one day in the future, right?
I was hoping it could be like a trait based thing, but I
Yep.
don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, looking back, it's really interesting that the design space has moved a bit, partly because of the investigators that they've designed for it. So Kohaku and then the parallels have made a uh, different use of the bless space. So I think the seal archetype is still very strong for Sister Mary, but there's more things to do now, which is very cool, and
Yes.
you
Yeah.
can do them.
Yes. You can do it. That's the important thing. Because that's kind of like the change of bless and curse. Bless, you can do them. Curse, less strong than it was before. That was kind of like the evolution between the two.
And we'll talk more about that next time. We'll talk about all the curse tokens and what it's like playing with curse tokens on your team. I think that'll be a fun time. So thank you for
Mhm.
joining us. And yes, we think that blessed tokens are cracked. Play them. They're fun though.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
We'll like to hear about what you think too in the comments. So please drop your own stories of using blessed tokens in the chat below. We'll see you next time.